Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the concept of being red pilled, and we'll go over a little bit of Nine Inch Nails' song "The Great Destroyer," and again, maps and meaning. At least part of the origin of this book. I'm on the last legs of it. This thing is incredibly awesome to understand, and like some of it was a chore, but not really. I really do enjoy this kind of stuff when you try to take the whole imagery of myth and show what that looks like in actual reality. So that I was going through my regular warehouse day, and I'm talking to people there. I do not. There's a plethora of ideas to just kind of have a monologue about for a couple minutes, and talk to this guy Omar, and I'm like, Omar, I'm doing a video blog. What has been on your mind lately? I am curious. And he said, well, the whole equality thing and Andrew Tate and being red pilled. I'm like, hold on, there's a lot going on right there. And so he went into the red pill thing specifically, and our friend Gideon was there, and Gideon is from Africa. And I've talked about it before. And he said, I'm like, do you know what being red pilled means? He's like, no. Well, it's have you seen The Matrix? He's like, yes, I've seen it. Okay, it's the concept of you take the blue pill, you wake up in your bed, and you can believe whatever you want to believe. And that's relativism, really. And then if you take the red pill, you see how far down the rabbit hole goes. And the red pill is truth itself, sort of. But I'm going to read the definition on dictionary.com under slang. Red pill refers to becoming enlightened to the truth about reality, especially a truth that is difficult to accept or expose disillusions. Online, red pill is especially used among anti-feminist and white supremacist groups to refer to waking up to the truth that women in liberal politics are oppressing men and white people. But that's what being red pilled is. It's a direct kind of metaphor from the Matrix. It's seeing, and especially attacking, like you tend to find things that correct yourself or others or anything really in the place you least want to look, but you should, right? Well, why am I coughing? Well, you smoke a lot. No, it's the cold. No, it's definitely the cigarettes, dude. Like that's an obvious kind of example, but that's what I mean. It's looking into the things that you don't want to, addressing the things you don't want to, like how much you eat, how much you sleep, how much you should read or shouldn't read, or how much you shouldn't be on the internet and playing games, and how much you're investing into reality. I always theory crafted the whole concept of like a midlife crisis actually happens when a person hasn't really utilized their full talents as much as they think they should have, because they know they could have done better and time's run out, so they just kind of flip and go off the wall. Well, that's what being red pilled is. Now, what does that have to do with, well, Jordan Peterson might make sense there, but The Great Destroyer, we'll get to that one in a little bit, because I think it's the whole message of that song. Let me back up a little bit here. So that's being red pilled. That's finding the truth of things and seeing, oh, here's the actually overarching premise that's going on around us instead of just this tiny little thing. And some of the things that kind of tug you and pull you to politics and to debauchery, toward the carnality of the news is negativity, and the news knows this. They try to grab your attention through the negative. People look at the negative because the negative is something like, that might get me killed, so maybe we can share this information, and I will not do that. It grabs attention. The negative grabs attention, pulls at you. So when it's pulling at you, that's like another concept of like of a pain. And from what I can tell, my definition of pain is it's either separation or threat of separation. Of what? Well, that's a change. That's why you can. That's not a change. That's a that's the question really, because you could feel pain, like a kid can feel pain for a doll if they drop the doll, or you could even feel that too if you got them. You kind of project yourself into what the doll would be feeling. The same thing with C.S. Lewis made this argument, like to deny someone else's pain is to deny that a telephone pole doesn't exist simply because it's further away. So pain is something everybody can understand. It's like the common denominator. But it also shortens your time window. You think less further into the future if you're under pain or under stress, or you're under a want, or you have a need you need to fill. It's hard to think through that. That's like your primary. It's like fasting. Fasting, I think, is so important. You should do it once in a while because it resets things in their proper order. Obviously, food is there, but that's like, it seems like hunger is like a beacon toward which direction the priority of things should be. I think that's a good way of putting it, because I've fasted a couple times when I don't know what to do with myself or don't have like a giant direction or theme to go to, and every time I fasted for that reason, not simply for dietary purposes, like it's been a new chapter in my life. So I strongly recommend doing it. And if you want advice, please ask away. I've done it a couple times, a couple different methods too. The other part of things being painful that we have to understand is that pain is serious. It's so we can understand, the pull of like, we're all gonna die, climate change, potential pain is super, super serious. Change your method of doing everything. Or the world's oppressing women or black people or Africa or Ukraine. We got to do something about this, and that's a loud voice. But it's real, and so you have to take it seriously. And people know you do, and so they can play with that. That's like the knowledge of good and evil, knowledge of vulnerability, and someone else knowing that as well, and then playing that game and seeing if they can tug on your emotions. And then it only works if there's a moral culture. If everybody is narcissistic and only worry about themselves and their own pain and not have the ability to project it out, that kind of logic doesn't work. That's why I think propaganda is it's easy to work in America specifically. So that's being red pilled, and it took me a minute to figure this out. Well, maybe more than a minute, because there's a story in the Bible. It's Cain and Abel. Abel makes a sacrifice of a lamb, and Cain makes a sacrifice of vegetables and fruit. God blesses Abel and said, Cain gets mad at him, and he's jealous of him, roughly, because of the blessing. So Cain kills Abel. There's a lot to that, I think, but it's the part afterward where God is talking to him. And where before he kills Abel, I'm moving the table. He's like, God says, why is your countenance fallen? If you do good, will you not be rewarded? But behold, sin crouches at the door and desires to have you, but you must master it. So sin is an archery term. Something like missing the mark. Like, I missed. Just due to my finitude, due to my wrong guessing, due to my willfully wrong guessing, it crouches at the door. That's the beyond. So like maybe the future, something like that. And it desires to have you, but God says you must master it. So that's like, you must master your ability to go into the negative. And maybe choose it, and maybe not go that direction. But he doesn't say run away from it. He doesn't say cower from it. I believe I mentioned this before. If not, it's worth talking about all the time. You must master it. You must understand. You must pay attention. You must wake up and be red-pilled to the darkness that's actually going on, because pain is serious. And heaven forbid we actually listen to everything everybody tells us and then do everything everybody tells us instead of making a proper evaluation of what's important in life. So that's one of the motivations for examining the darkness. Now, in this book, he's going over the divinity of inspiration. He's writing a letter to his father. And after he wrote, like, the whole thing's worth reading, but I'm not going to read this book to you except for this one part, because this is what I found extremely interesting, and I find myself doing this quite a bit as well. He's talking about trying, like, he was in a lapse of how to write this book after writing it for like 3 years or something like that. He says, I turn in consequence to my dreams, acting on a tip from Jung, who had proposed that the dream might contain information when no other source could suffice. But my dreams dried up just when I needed them most, and no information was forthcoming. I was in a kind of stasis at a standstill that was very painful for me. I had spent several years intensely working and thinking, trying to understand individual human motivation for the worst possible human actions. I was doing what I truly believed was best, to the best of my ability, and doing it despite its substantial interference with my personal and professional lives. I had decided to devote my life to the problem of evil, to the development of a true understanding of evil, in the hopes of finding some means of combating it. In my search it had come to a stop, a dead end. This did not seem reasonable. I truly believed I deserved better. So that's exactly what he's doing in this book. And he does it the same thing in the 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order. He's trying to figure out evil. Because one thing, you can take the same, doctor analogy. Not the same, but the doctor analogy of, every doctor knows what a healthy body looks like. They're not going to give you one more leg or one less leg on purpose when they send you home. But they can disagree on what's wrong with you. So we like, that's the template. It's very interesting because we know what the image of us, of a good version of us, looks like. But as far as actions go, that's a little bit harder because you have to see a little bit more than just the object of the body. The whole letter is pretty interesting to read because he basically, he's talking to his dad. He's trying to explain that it's almost impossible to describe this. And this actually just hit me earlier today because he's trying to describe the problem of evil and the concept of good and eliminating ideology. And he tells his dad, like, I don't think I have enough words. It's like, it's beyond language to describe what I'm trying to do. And that's kind of echoed in the Bible, roughly speaking. If God wanted to tell us every single thing he wanted to tell us, there wouldn't be enough books to contain it. Or if Christ wanted to, if everything that Christ did was contained in a book, not a single book, not a single library in the entire world could contain it, or something like that, or all the books in the whole world, something like that, grandiose. It's kind of an echo there. So he's trying to, diagnose the problem of evil. And then we have the Great Destroyer. And I was just humming this song because, songs come and go. See you, buddy. It's one of the songs my wife likes because of the synthetic drums at the end of it. The song goes like this. Say your name. Try to speak as clearly as you can. You know everything gets written down. Nod your head just in case they could be watching with their shiny satellite. I hope they cannot see the limitless potential living inside of me to murder everything. I hope they cannot see I am the Great Destroyer. Turn it up. Listen to the poop they pump into your head, filling you with apathy. Hold your breath. Wait until you know the time is right on time. The end is near. Then the chorus again. I hope they cannot see. Now, up here, this is at genius.com. It says, there could be a song from the perspective of the character known as the Angry Sniper, or also a song about the Red Horse virus referred to in hidden lyrics. Could also state the thought process of somebody who is secretly rebelling against the government in Year Zero. It's from the album Year Zero. I don't think it's any of that. What I think it is, which actually rhymes with Solzhenitsyn and what he talks about in the Gulag Archipelago and the whole communist regime, I think the Great Destroyer is just that. So what is this character doing? It's describing a whole scene and a character and a mentality. Say your name, do things the right way, nod your head, because they might be listening, act the proper part, don't stand up, don't resist, turn it up, listen to what they put in your head, and be apathetic, hold your breath, wait until you know the time is right on time, the end is near. Just keep waiting, just keep doing things normally, just keep acting the part, just keep being normal and going along. They will take care of everything for you. And that's complacency. The Great Destroyer is the one that doesn't say, no, it's not good to kill Jews. Or, no, we shouldn't all go beat up that guy and take his stuff. It's the one that goes along with it. It's the crowd. The crowd is the Great Destroyer. It's I am Legion in the Bible. It's not an individual person. It's like the madness of the mob. I believe that's what that song is actually trying to talk to you about. It's going along and doing the right thing. Being blue-pilled. Just going along with a process which is just feeling itself. Lack of articulation, lack of consciousness, and lack of carrying a cross, which is your being and your suffering, to the end and acting appropriately, bettering yourself, and it's all your fault if things go wrong. Because the individual character, this is what you can work on here. Obviously, you can't work on stuff out there. There's a book that Carl Truman wrote called The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self, and he begins in there talking about Augustine versus Rousseau. And Rousseau makes the case that it is not my fault, society made me do things. And Augustine says, no, it is my fault, I do things, roughly speaking. One's like stealing because you're hungry, or stealing for fun. There's like the two analogies. And that's the way life kind of split when those philosophies were posited. That's like roughly the start of the journey philosophically to our modern era. It goes through Jung and Hume and a whole bunch of other philosophers. Why our culture, the mainstream culture, thinks the way it does, and why things tug at us the way they do. And it starts right there. Is it your fault, or is it somebody else's fault? Because you can point the finger forever, but you forget that every single person in Germany at that time. And you could even say Russia and in America for certain things, because how many babies do we kill every year? How many people are just being silent when they know things are wrong? And if everybody stays silent, well, who's guiding the major themes of the world? And are we just going to follow along with whatever they say? Like, what's the point that people actually rise up? Where you just say your name and speak as clearly as you can. Nod your head in case they could be watching. That kind of thing. That's where the synergy lies there. Being red-pilled is the proper study of evil as it could be. And your part in, I guess, rallying against that, because things could always get infinitely worse. Your part of being red-pilled is understanding that life is super hard. It can be super hard, and it roughly should be. And then your life's over. So what's in the middle? That's significant, right? What can you do about it? Because your time's limited. The second you start, this is something I realized when I started adding more things to my schedule. The second you start disciplining your time, you have to acknowledge you only have so much time. It brings your mortality closer to yourself when you say, I'm going to do this for a year, or I'm going to do this and this and this every single day. Or, you segment your time with things you know you should do properly. You also, in the back of your mind, know, you might be investing in a couple of years, but death is on the horizon. If you don't do that, and just wing every day, you ignore the fact that time's coming. That's basically nihilism. And you don't have to take responsibility, and there's a certain flair to that kind of life. I think it's more of a young person's life, to be honest, because if you have 90% of your life left to live, are you really thinking about your 401k? You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a thing that you would even think about. But once you start taking life seriously, how to discipline yourself, eating correctly, thinking correctly, researching as far back as you can to the most authentic truths that keep people flourishing and moving ahead. Well, you might be making a better life for yourself, and because you bear that image, you might actually be sharing it with other people. Because how many people do you interact with a day? 10, 15? Depends on your job, right? They interact with 10 or 15. They interact with 10 or 15. So if you cut someone off on the highway, or let them in nicely, you have like a ripple effect in humanity. It's really interesting if you think about it that way. Anyway, those are my thoughts on being red-pilled, the Great Destroyer. And, again, if you haven't... Here, I'll show you the book. Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Carl Trueman. It's really, really a good read. It's less exciting, but it's more factual and lets you... It reads the history of thought to you, basically. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Take care.